Hi everyone, I'm Matt Jordan from Jordan Fabrics, and today I'm going to cut the rail fence pattern, which is a pattern that I've been cutting for many years. I would say since the late 70s, when Donna and I used to make quilts for stores. The rail fence we use has 4 different fabrics in it, and I picked out 3 combinations I'm going to cut it out of just to demonstrate the different kinds of fabrics that you can use. This first combination I have here is from Northcott Fabrics, and it is called Vintage Christmas. Really nice Christmas prints, kind of darker tones with some lighter tones. We have a real nice Hoffman collection here, kind of summery, ocean turtles, tropical looking. I like that a lot, nice combo. And here's kind of a traditional combo. This is called Autumn Woods, and it's from Andover Fabrics. And I like this combo. Darker fabrics to a little bit lighter fabrics. Some nice contrast in there, which I think looks good in the rail fence. I'm going to cut all 3 into rail fences, but I'm going to start on this combo here, this combination from Andover. The rail fence pieces, the finished cut size is going to be 8.5 inches by 2.5 inches. And I'm going to cut about 18 inches off the bolts to get started. I'm going to start with this print here. And you can use half-yard cuts, maybe something you have at home, 4 half yards that coordinate, maybe lighter and darker tones, and use those. Keep it simple and keep it easy. Now that I have the pieces cut out, I'm going to iron them, check for imperfections of any kind. It's good to use your hands, especially when you first start. Check this one. Feels pretty smooth. It's really nice to use the iron to get your fabrics ready because it smooths everything out so nicely and it makes the cutting so much easier. Let's take them over for some cutting now. So before I cut, I always check my fabrics to be sure that the folded edges are relatively lined up on each other, that my other edges are relatively lined up. Doesn't have to be perfect. The reason for that is that our cuts are 8.5 inches, and 8.5 and 8.5 is 17. We cut 18, so let me check now. I always check my numbers. Here's my 0 line, here's my 17. So on purpose, I obviously cut extra. This looks good here, and this looks great here. All 4 layers are going to be cut properly at 8.5. I'm going to start on my 0 line here. And just take your time when you cut, there's no rush. And when you make a quilt or anything, that you don't have to cut 4 layers at a time or whatever. Just cut what is comfortable for you, because you want to be accurate. And just take your time and don't be in a hurry. And 8.5 and 8.5 is 17. I'm on my 17. Excellent. Now we'll go for the next cut, and that's 2.5 inch cuts coming up towards the selvage. So I'm going to turn this board and get started on that. I'm going to get a nice straight edge on the bottom here for my first cut. That looks good. And I'm going to get that 0 line cut right there. So your next step would be to separate these into their individual fabrics. the 4 different fabrics just right on top of each other, same print. These are looking good. From what we have cut here today, you're going to be able to get 32 blocks. And you could cut more, of course, and get more blocks, or less and get less blocks, but this was a very efficient way to use up half yards. And that will be the block there, and you'll get 32 blocks like this. So I have cut all 3 sets, and I'm finishing stacking the batik set. I'll get that done. I like all the combinations, but I think the batik, of course I like batik fabrics, but I think this is my favorite. Okay, I'm going to take this over to Eva now and ask her to help us get this sewn. Eva, how you doing?
Good.
Excellent. Eva, I have a rail fence here, and we'll go like that'll be the
okay. That's
okay.
Okay, very
all
good.
right.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
You want me to make 4? I go chain piece here. Make 4 at a time. This will make 4. I will put these 2 together, and maybe a piece together. Okay. And I will put 4 together on these ones right here. Clip it and press to the dark. Other side to the dark also. Okay, this is going to be, and now I'm going to attach these 2. This is very simple and easy to make it. And press. Open the seams. Now they look very nice and even and flat. Now I'm going to press. They're so easy and fast. Okay, that is all of the 4 blocks.
We have the 24 blocks done in all 3 of the colors, and I'm going to lay them out into the pattern now. And I'm going to start with the Christmas first. The layout for these blocks is very easy. The blocks only face 2 different directions for the whole quilt. So I like to look at it like the green down, the green up. Green down, this fabric, meaning that's the green, and green up. And now I will continue on. Since this was down, this block will have the green up, green down, green down. So you're starting to see a rail start to form here, which will start to form our centralized pattern there. The next row will be exactly the same as the first row I did. So the green is down, there I go. Green up. Green down, and finally green up. So now you really see a rail taking place here. Very nice, very nice. We'll set this last block here. And that completes this quilt for our layout. And you can see the green rails coming here and the light Santas. That's the rail fence. And I've got two other colors I'd like to show you. Setting the last two blocks down here. There we are. Very nice. I like both of these quilts really well. You know, when you do a rail fence, you can use more than 4 fabrics. Traditionally, it's 4 fabrics, traditionally. And in this case, I used a couple of very dark backgrounds to a medium to a light. And you can see there's a kind of a heavy rail effect going through there with the dark backgrounds. I think it looks real nice. This one, I used 4 kind of different batiks. Darker, of course, going heavy through, a little lighter, peach, and real light. I like both effects. And when you do a rail fence, if you pick fabrics that you like and use some lighter and darker tones, you're going to get some type of really nice effect. I've picked out some fabrics for borders. And what I like to do on borders is pick out, of course, coordinates, if I can, to the fabrics that are in the top. This particular line from Hoffman had a bunch of nice prints, kind of ocean. This was a turtle print in the group, and I like it as a border. It'll be outstanding. The colors match. It'll just set everything off real nice. The first border I'm going to put around it, which will be a little less fabric, I'll do it a little thinner, is this ocean print here, so to speak. And I really like the colors with this. Once again, this is in this line, and I like that look right there. Okay, here's this beautiful Northcott Christmas quilt, and I've picked out 2 fabrics to use as borders. And what I'm thinking here is, once it's laid out, this will be the first border that goes around. It's a coordinate in the group. I love it. Once again, a little thinner. And then this is a red background of this present print, which I like to repeat things like that if I can. And this will be a little larger border. And I think that'll frame that really nicely. That'll be very good looking. I like that. For this last quilt here, this is an Andover collection from Andover Fabrics. Fall prints, obviously. And let me move this. I'm messing the quilt up here. Move this here. So what I'm going to use on this quilt, just for fun, is 3 borders. And this rusty orange print will just pop off here really nicely going around. I'll cut about a 3-inch border. That'll be really nice. I'll cut this lighter border about 2 inches, which will give us distance between this green brown style print here that I'm going to use as my last border, which I think is set off really nicely by all these coordinates plus the quilt. I'm looking forward to seeing this one. I wanted to let you guys know something, that there's no rules for borders. You can use 1 border, 2 borders, 3 borders. A lot of times people will put on borders to bring a quilt to a particular size, which is great. But pick what you like, experiment with it a little, look at it for a while, but no rules, so to speak. Do what you want to do and do what you like and do what you think looks good. That's my rule, okay? But I'm really interested to see what these quilts are going to look like, and through a little bit of editing magic by James, these quilts came out very nicely, I think. Here's 3 borders that we put onto the fall rail fence. I like the way the orange comes off here and just pops the patchwork, so to speak. Nice little light border and a dark border. On the batik, we picked up another fabric that was in the line for the first border around, and I cut it a little smaller. And then the turtles on the outside really make a nice frame, I think. I like that a lot too. I have one more. This is the Christmas. Let's put that out. And this one I use 2 borders, like the one below it, like the batik. And I generally start with a light, and then go to a darker background on the outside. I really enjoy all of these quilts. I like them all. I think if I had to pick one, it would be this one here. And that's only because I didn't have to bring it to a certain size, and I like 3 borders. And I love the way that this pops off of this quilt and frames that patchwork very nicely. But they're all good. And by the way, I'd be very interested in knowing what you think, and leave comments, if you would, about what you like or don't like. I like this also with 3 borders, maybe a little peach one. It would be, in my mind, a little better. Once again, it depends on the size you want and what fabrics you have. And same here, a nice Christmas green would have popped off here really nicely. And I would enjoy that quilt better. But that's the only reason I like this one better, is I like the way it's framed. There's no particular way you have to do it. And once again, let me know in the comments what you think. I'd be interested in reading those. I was looking at the videos and I found an interesting rail fence video that Donna did that has a slight variation. And if you're interested in taking a look, let's get that started.
Hi, I'm Donna Jordan from Jordan Fabrics. Today I'm going to show you how to make a rail fence from a jelly roll. A rail fence with an accent. So let's pick out a jelly roll and get started. We're going to use a pre-cut jelly roll from Moda Fabrics. This is made from ombre metallic fabrics. These are really cool. This is the fabrics. All of these bolts, they vary in color, dark to light and then back to dark. They've got these wonderful dots, some of which are metallic. So let's open this up, see what all the colors look like, and pick the accent. I'm going to open up the package here so I can see what the colors look like, because you can't always tell from just the outside of the jelly roll. So let's unroll it a little bit, and then we get a much better idea of the colors. This has just a lot of fun colors. So let's fan this out and get an idea of the colors. So the darker parts of every strip seem to be down at this end, but that gives us a good idea. So I think I'm going to use an almost solid or a grunge for the accent. The grunge fabrics from Moda, they are almost solids, but they're purposefully distressed a little bit. So you can see either a little shading or sometimes a little bit of a different color. We've got a little purple, a little bit of pink here. So I use these where you might use a solid because they have a little more detail, a little more going on, and it doesn't sit as flat as a solid might. So I'm going to pull a couple colors out. I want something in the medium tones. That might work. This blue might work. If I was going to go with a solid, this one would work real well. I'm trying to get something in the middle. If I go with a really dark black, it's going to pop too much. So I just want a little bit of color. And here's another one that would look pretty good, that green. I think that's what I'm going to go with. All we need is 1 jelly roll and 1 yard of fabric. I've got mine, you grab yours, and let's get started. The first thing we need to do is to cut our accent fabric. So I need 24 strips that are 1 inch wide. So I'm going to cut some off the bolt here and iron it up so I can cut it nice and accurately. I'm going to be cutting 4 layers of fabric here. If you only like to cut 2, that's okay. Or if you like to cut 8, that's okay. It's a matter of personal preference. Now I do find that putting a weight up there really helps. So I'm lining up my ruler with the grid that's on the cutting board. And that weight really helps keep it nice and neat, nice and straight. without moving. So I'm going to cut these 1 inch because we just want a little bit of accent showing. Now these 1 inch strips are going to be put between our jelly roll strips. So we need to sort these strips so that we have a nice blend of colors. So our rail fence today is going to have 3 strips. So I'm going to start sorting these into darks, mediums, and lights. So I can pick out 3 strips and put it with 2 of these guys, and then we're going to make a strip unit. So let me show you. I'm going to pick a dark, and then I'm going to pick a medium, and then I'm going to pick one of the light ones. So I'm going to have a strip unit that's going to look like this, and then we're going to cut that into squares, and those will be our rail fences. So I'm going to sort all my colors first. I've sorted all my strips, so I've got 3 in each group, and I just threw one of these accent colors on top to make sure I like the accent with everything. I need to use 36 strips, and my jelly roll had 40, so there's 2 of them I'm not going to use. I didn't really like this color green with the accent, and this one is pretty close to the accent, so that won't show very well. So now we're going to take these groups and we're going to stitch them into a strip unit. Now your groups may look completely different because every jelly roll is different, but try to get a darker and a medium and a lighter, if possible, for every group that you have. Before we stitch these up, I want to give you a couple of hints about the pinked edges on these jelly roll strips. So Moda cuts theirs with a pinked edge. Most of the manufacturers cut them with this small pinked edge. But you can always put it up against your ruler. You can see what they're doing is they're measuring the 2.5 inches from the innermost part of the pinked edge. So you always get the full 2.5 inches. So when you put a strip on here that's not pinked, you can just put it right along the narrowest, the inside parts of the little pinked, and it will come out straight and you will get your full 2.5 inches. So we're going to lay the green accent right on the inside of those pinked edges, and we're going to sew a 1/4 inch from the edge of the accent, which is also a 1/4 inch from the innermost edges of that jagged cut. Now when you sew strip units like this, try to not stretch either one. Just lay them right out smoothly, one on top of the other, and then stitch. I don't have trouble with mine bowing, but if you do, you can stitch your first seam this way and your next seam the other way, and then your next seam that way. You can alternate. Now I'm going to finger press this. I'm going to finger press to the right. I'm going to press all the seams in this unit to the right. So I'm just pulling it open a little and drawing my fingernail or the pad of my finger down along that seam because it makes ironing it easier. Now we're going to stitch the middle piece on, and it's a little bit trickier to get your seam exactly perfect here, but it'll be close enough because these zigzags are going to be hanging off a teeny bit. And you can always flip it around and sew from the other direction. So my presser foot is a 1/4 inch, and so I'm putting that right on the inside of those little jags, and my accent fabric is right on the inside. And that's just going to come out just right. These are so much fun to make. I just love the little accent color in there. And this confetti fabric is kind of ombre. It goes a little bit lighter in the middle, so every block's going to look a little bit different. So since I finger pressed, it's laying pretty flat already. So I'm going to start by just ironing it without steam and pressing it open a little bit, making sure it's nice and flat. And then I'm going to take my straight edge and see how straight I've got it before I steam press it. That's pretty straight there, even though I knocked it a little with the yardstick there. It's pretty straight. So now I'm going to add the steam and get it really, really flat. Now the strip unit should be 7.5 inches. That's what I was hoping for. And mine does look like it's 7.5 inches. If yours comes out a little bit smaller or even a little bit bigger, don't worry about it. But when you cut your blocks out of this, you want to make them as wide as your strip unit came out. So for instance, if yours only came out 7 inches wide, then you're going to want to cut 7-inch blocks. So sew your strip units and double check the size before you cut the blocks. I'm going to just cut them one at a time here, 7.5 inches. And I will get 5 of them out of this unit. And then I'm going to stitch everything else up. Cut them all. So I'll show you what the block looks like. Very cool. So those are going to be what our rail fence is going to look like. I have all of my blocks cut out now, and I started laying out the quilt and twisting things around till I have a really nice layout. Now, my jelly roll was a little more challenging because it's a lot of different colors. Most jelly rolls have a theme, and you'll have half of them green and half of them cream, or a third green, a third red, a third cream. It's a little bit easier. Mine was a little challenged so that I could get the nice, strong split rail fence look there. So I had to move things around and try not to get too picky, but I wanted a strong pattern. I also wanted these confetti dots sprinkled throughout. So it's kind of like I've thrown the confetti and it's spread out here and it's spread out there. And there's a little bit less around the edges. And this is really, really fun. So you could also do just a random colorway. Instead of making these strong lines, you could just put your blocks at random and keep moving them around. And again, use your cell phone, make a layout, take a picture, then move them around, take another picture, and that will really help you decide what's going to look best. To get the strong rail fence pattern, you can really see it from this angle. The blocks are only turned 2 ways. I have the prominent dark one on the right and the prominent dark one on the top. The right and the top. And when you do that, you get that whole continuous line running throughout the quilt. There are different ways to lay out rail fences, but this is the traditional way, and I think this is the strongest layout for this pattern. Now, I don't want my blocks to get mixed up when I sew them together, so I'm going to leave this on the table, and I'm just going to stick a pin in the first block from every row here, and that way I will know as I sew my rows that every row at the beginning is going to have one of these pins in it. Now I'm just going to pick up this one row in order. I'm going to sew this row and then I'm going to lay it right back on the table to make sure I didn't get it flipped around. Here's this row stitched together. And I do like to lay it out, make sure I didn't get anything turned the wrong way. Of course, this row is a little bit shorter now because it's got the seam allowances in it. Now, for the direction of your seam allowances back here, you want to always press it towards this long piece. So this is pressed that way, and this one is pressed that way. Because there's all these seam allowances here, and it wants to go that way. When the whole quilt is done, they will all be alternating because this is going to go this way, this seam here is going to go that way, and that'll make it really easy for me to get these lined up when I sew the rows together. So I'm going to make each row separate, and then I'm going to sew the rows together, and then we'll be ready for borders. This was by far the most fun rail fence variation I've ever made. You can see from here the accent fabric that's between all of those strips. It's subtle, but it unifies it very, very nicely. And the strong rails, they are showing just throughout the whole quilt. Now, there are special things you have to do when you're stitching with those pinked edges, because when you cut your strip units, now you have some pinked edges and some that are not. So I'm going to do something I tell my customers never do this. This is not as straight as most of my stitching is. So if you get up really close, I tell people don't point out the flaws, but I had a lot of trouble matching all of my intersections. Now when you get back and now that it's quilted, you really can't tell, but I'm just telling you so you're warned. You will get better at stitching those pinked edges. I used the ombre fabric on the border and it looks really good because we've got dark in some spots and then light in some spots, and I used the same binding and I moved it a little bit. So I've got dark here where this is light, and I've got to show you the back side. I almost like the back of the quilt as much as the front. So I took all the scraps from the strip units and stitched them into a border. So this is the same ombre confetti on the back side here. And these are just the scraps from when we made those strip units. I just sewed them into one long piece. And then remember I had a couple of strips left over. I just cut those down to 1 inch, put it on each side and sandwiched it. And so this is just stuck in where the back would have been seamed anyway. And this is just a great look on the back side. I always like to make my backs interesting, but this one is just really, really fun. I love how there's more dots, less dots, more dots. Just tons of fun. Thanks for watching our tutorial today on the modern rail fence. Now we will have this as a free pattern on our website, so it'll be really easy for you to make your own. Happy quilting.
I hope you liked Donna's version of the rail fence today. That was enjoyable to watch. I also hope that you like the ones that we showed you today. From the patchwork to the borders, I think these came out nice. If you like what we do here at Jordan Fabrics and you'd like to help us out, subscribe to our YouTube station. That'd be fantastic. And until we see you again next time, happy quilting.